¿Hablas español?
Sprichst du Deutsch?
If you used Babbel, you would. Babbel's conversation-based techniques teaches you useful words and phrases to get you speaking quickly about the things you actually talk about in the real world, with lessons handcrafted by over 200 language experts and voiced by real native speakers. Babbel is like having a private tutor in your pocket. Start speaking with Babbel today. Get up to 55% off your Babbel subscription right now at babbel.com/Spotify, spelled BABBEL.com/Spotify. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Welcome to PeopleTech, the podcast of the HCM Technology Report. We're recording from HR Tech in Vegas, brought to you by our friends and partners at Fuel50. Here's your host, Mark Feffer.
This is PeopleTech, the podcast of the HCM Technology Report. I'm Mark Feffer, and we're recording today from the exposition floor of the HR Technology Exposition and Conference. And my guest right now is a well-known analyst, well-known observer of the industry. So, Camille, could I ask us to start by introducing yourself?
Camille Prost. I'm a managing director at Accenture, and my focus area is really on digital HR, but also looking at the impact specifically of the digitization of manufacturing and engineering environments, right, in organizations. Which is pretty fascinating.
Are you seeing things here that are really exciting you or really have your curiosity piqued?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say there's, definitely talent acquisition is, as we all know, booming, right? So there's a lot of, focus on, how to really, identify and source the right talent, right? Which is obviously critical for organizations these days. Talent acquisition is really, one of the, a key focus area. Learning, right? Learning, upskilling, making sure that, people get the opportunities to, grow in the enterprise. I mean, that is fundamental these days. And as we think about the skills of the future, right, and especially as I mentioned, in those environments which are very constrained, right, by and impacted, I would say, by the labor shortages, by inflation, by the war for talent, really. It is becoming really critical for organizations to double down on those, upskilling, reskilling capabilities.
Everybody seems to be thinking that the reason a lot of employees are moving on from their current jobs is just general unhappiness, dissatisfaction, and after COVID, they're not going to put up with it anymore. Do you agree with that?
Well, there is definitely some noise, I would say, in the market, right, around people leaving companies, trying to find better jobs, better pay, in the market. What we also see is a strong interest from people to be, I would say, taken care of, right, by organizations, and really taken care of, obviously financially, but also in terms of being more marketable, internally, right, within organizations, and that's where solutions like Fuel50 actually play, right, because there's a critical capability here to really enable people to thrive, right, in organizations, and people, if they have the choice, I mean, they would prefer definitely to evolve, right, internally and build new skills, expand their network, really being able to provide differentiated value in the organization, as long as they, obviously feel that they're growing, right, to some extent. So it is not, I would say, a yes or no, question. It is, it is essentially a bit more, nuanced.
I've heard people say that I'm going to shift into skills, and I've heard people say that companies have the option of building skills, buying skills, or borrowing skills. It's a logical statement. It makes sense to me. But it makes it sound pretty simple, and I can't imagine putting together a workforce with contingent workers and full-time workers and contractors. And I can't imagine that's an easy thing to do, especially if you're an enterprise. What do you think?
Absolutely, and I would say it's all of the above, what you mentioned, but it's also, I would add, the bot component, right? So, and what I mean by bot is, bringing more robotics capabilities, right, and AI and this type of sort of automation, right, in the to work essentially along with humans. So yes, I mean, there's definitely a sort of balance, right, to find between those different components, and there's organizations where it's becoming absolutely a matter of survival, I would say, right? If you take the industrial revolution, going on with all the digitization of manufacturing plants, for instance, I mean the work of let's say maintenance or assembly technicians are evolving, right? So they're evolving to be more like digital savvy, right? So how do you do that? What is the strategy? Do you need to hire new talent? Do you need to reskill your talent? And how do you actually how do you do that? How do you identify the skill gaps, right? And what career options can you sort of reposition your talent on, right? So there's definitely this hiring component. There's also a big development component and focus, right? And again, that's where Fuel50 is a leading solution in that space, right? To position the talent on new gig opportunities or longer term sort of journeys, right, in the organization. And the last piece really obviously contingent workforce is also a key focus area. But the bot components that I mentioned, how do you actually learn to work with robotics or leading edge capabilities let's say for an engineer learning to work with digital twins, right? How do you actually work with that, right? I mean, it's not something that you by nature, right? So you have to learn new skills. You have to learn on the job. You have to essentially be upskilled in either through gig opportunities, but also some learning pathways.
I'm wondering about the role of technology in all of this. Learning management systems, LXPs, have been growing in importance and sophistication over the last 5 or 6 years. The general vendors are doing more to incorporate and integrate outside tools to give them a wider offering. What do you think? How are all of these dynamics going to change the approach of employers as they plot their technology?
Yeah, that's a great question. So technology is, as you mentioned, obviously, the enabler, right, of all those new capabilities and really the momentum, right, building the momentum for your workforce evolution. There's when I look at technology and digital within organizations, there's some people think about digital as just the sort of automation component to it, right? There's actually obviously much more to it, right? There's digital is also the way you would provide access to any resources, right, internal to your enterprise. It's also about the way you access data insights, right? Obviously, it's also the way you you develop, right? You grow your talent. You create the next generation opportunities, right, for your talent. It's the way you flex your operating model also, and you respond to your business events new acquisitions, new divestitures, etc. And it's also the way you listen to your employees, right? So all those components are really part of the I would say the digital spectrum, right? Beyond just automation, right? So when I think that, and that's probably the how the expectations from employees are evolving, right? When I say employees, like it's also like business leaders, right, driving like business units or factory plants, etc. Like really having those capabilities at their fingertips, right, to really access like workforce insights, but also like have the ability to develop their talent, right, which is becoming fundamental.
And there's no shortage of data being output today. And I always wonder, and I never seem to get a good answer, but are the line managers, the middle managers in a company, are they able to make intelligent use of the data, or are they being kind of left behind?
Yeah, that's a very good point. So there is, obviously data is as good as you want it to be, right? so there's definitely data is not going to be clean, usable, just by nature, right? So you need to when you think about data, you need to think about all the the governance, right, that goes along with it. You need to think about the processes, the policies, etc. And middle management has a key role to play in that, right? Obviously, like employees, right, making sure like they maintain the quality of their own data, but line managers also have a role to sort of infuse, I would say, in the organization the needs for having some clean usable data that they can sort of use, right, in terms of insights. I think there's definitely a learning component, right, for middle management to learn how to essentially make use of those data insights, right? If you think about let's say workforce optimization in a manufacturing area, how do you like, and when you think about like the schedulers, for example, like the supervisors, like who have to schedule like work shift, etc. How can they do that, right, with the right data insight? I mean, it's a learning process, right? With smart technologies, for like workforce management, workforce scheduling, you need to obviously be trained, right, and become proficient. So there's definitely an investment from organizations to on the sort of middle management layer also, to unlock really the power of data.
And stepping back a little bit, just want to ask you something about the industry as a whole. Is there anything that you're seeing here that's really got you excited, that you think is going to have a major impact on how people manage their workforce and do their work?
Yeah, there's a lot of exciting technologies. I would say, especially as I mentioned in the first place, like on two major themes, right? Talent acquisition, but also talent management, talent mobility, right? And the two obviously are completely tied together, right? So I think that's probably the most exciting sort of areas, right, to be laser focused on, right now, and that's what our clients, are talking about, quite frankly, right now. There's, I think there's probably a theme that I would love to see more, and probably at some point it will come. It's more about what we call digital twins, right, in the was sort of the people space, right? And some organizations are going there, right? In trying to really like create a virtual model, right, of the workforce and sort of run some scenarios, etc. So I think it's probably like a theme that will also come, and that will definitely connect the dots, right, between talent acquisition model and what you mentioned before, like the build, buy, borrow and bot components, right? What is the right sort of mix? What is the right structure to really optimize your your workforce, right? And have the exactly the right, I would say, talent structure, talent map, right, in your organization.
Camille, thanks very much for taking your time to come and visit.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
You've been listening to PeopleTech of the HCM Technology Report. This HR Tech series is graciously brought to you by our partners at Fuel50. For all other HR, sourcing, and recruiting news, check out hcmtechnologyreport.com.
Welcome to Don't Retire, Graduate, the podcast that asks you what you want to be when you grow up so you can graduate into retirement with a purpose and a passion, whether you're 25, 85, or any age in between. Gain actionable financial and mindset tips from your favorite authors, podcasters, and influencers to help you reach that exciting next chapter. Listen now and start building your path to financial freedom and reframing what retirement can mean to you. This is your host, Eric Brotman, reminding you, don't retire, graduate.
Faith in the news media has been challenged, making it even harder to get stories told. The Friday Reporter podcast was created to help audiences better understand the media by hosting journalists who will answer the questions to which we need answers. Join me every Friday to hear more.